Well, good afternoon, folks. I'm out here at Lee Reynolds Farm in central Alabama, and I want to talk about Rezilon and foxtail. I'm out here in the field. One of his fields right now was a field he had some horses in, and he hasn't done anything to it. It's not being cut for hay, and it's not being grazed, and you can see all the seed heads that are out here growing up in this area right now. This field right here is in fact an annual foxtail. All right, we're now at another section of Mr. Lee's farm, and in a different pasture up closer to the highway, and I'm walking through the field, and hopefully you can see the amount of foxtail he has right here in this little strip. And this foxtail is in fact knotroot foxtail, which is a perennial. It does have small little rhizomes, which I'll show you in just a few minutes. But you can see how this is spread out here and a little bit behind me. We felt that Rezilon would have a really good fit as far as annual grass control in particular. So Rezilon is a pre-emergent herbicide that's been developed over the last few years. On our label, we recommend 3 ounces in February for foxtails, and then we also tell people if foxtail is your main target weed, then you really need to come back after you get your first cutting off and put on an additional 3 ounces. Now, we've gotten some calls this year about Rezilon not controlling foxtail, and invariably when we go out and look at it, we find that what they have is not an annual foxtail species such as yellow foxtail, but it is in fact knotroot foxtail, which is a perennial species. Let's take a look at some of the roots of the 2 different species that I've talked about today, and just let me show you a little bit of the difference on those so that you can have an idea of what we're dealing with. So what I have here, if I can get it all in the picture, this is the knotroot foxtail plant. And as you can see, I've got a pretty big specimen here, and this field hasn't been mowed in about 2 months. And the farmer got behind a little bit here with all the rain we've had here in Alabama, and so he's just a little bit behind on cutting. So that's why these plants have gotten so large with such a big seed head on them. But you can see if you just saw this in the field, you would think that it was, you know, just a regular a yellow foxtail or an annual foxtail if you hadn't ever heard of the knotroot. But what you can do more than anything else is dig the roots up, dig your clump up, and knock all the dirt off of it. And what you will see are these little knotty rhizomes right here. And I'll just go ahead and pull this one off, and maybe you can see that. You can see how it's just a little bitty thing on this particular one. But anyway, that's what allows this thing to come back year after year. It's not coming from seed primarily. It does come from seed, but it will also regrow from these little knotty rhizomes. Now, if you dig the plant up, and I've dug one up here from the first location that we were at, and you knock all the dirt off of that plant and you don't see those, well then you know that you've got one of the annuals, and typically it could be giant foxtail, yellow, or green. But that's what you're going to see is just a fibrous root system. You don't see any of those rhizomes in this particular clump. And so that's really the thing that you look for to distinguish if you're not sure, is to go out, dig a few plants up, and look for those rhizomes. And if you see those rhizomes, you'll know you've got knotroot. Now, as I said, this is a perennial, and you will typically see the seed heads on these forming by June. You'll see the seed heads pop up in your field. And so, you know, that's a good indicator, because typically you won't see things like yellow until a little bit later in the summer. That's not that's just a general rule of thumb. That's not an absolute, but that's generally what you'll see. So the question is, if you see these seed heads in your field and you have used Rezilon, that's probably a good indication that you do have the knotroot, because again, Rezilon is a pre-emergence herbicide. It's not going to control a perennial species. So we're not controlling these clumps that are coming back from the rhizomes, but we do a pretty good job on it coming back from seed when it's coming back from these little knotty rhizomes. So you do have to have a post product that you were able to use, and I think it's safe to say that if you can control the knotroot, you're going to control the annual foxtail. But Rezilon has to be part of that program, because it does, as I said, spread by seed. And so if you don't have that Rezilon program in place, you're just going to get more and more of those plants.